November '75, you start your singles run, AWA champion. Some of the guys you faced, they would throw Andre at you. They would do the battle royal gimmick where
Sure.
Whoever won the battle royal then would have to face
Sure.
the champion. Memories of working with Andre.
One time, I don't know, maybe Sioux City, South Dakota, or something, or Rapid City, South Dakota, and we're on about a 1 week swing out west, and it was during the fall, the November Battle Royal scenario. But anyway, I was working a single match with him, and all of a sudden he was completely bombed, and Bobby and I had just taken a bump or something, and all of a sudden I guess Andre's about to fall over, and Bobby yells, "Roll out of the way!" I mean, I don't know what it was. That's all I had to hear. And this big tree fell, And, I mean, to think that somebody could be massive enough to just fall on you and hurt you. Yeah, very easy, But he was a tremendous talent. I actually went an hour with him.
Wow.
How I did it, I'm not quite sure, because you can go an hour with anybody and it can be the most god-awful, horrible, boring, whatever. But what happened was about 10, 12 minutes into the match, I threw him into the turnbuckle, and the turnbuckle came off. And he went down, and I took the turnbuckle, and I kept jabbing him with the steel part before they came and grabbed it and fixed the ring while the match was going on. And so he was theoretically injured at that point. And so I would just knees in the side of the rib. I'd run my head in the side of his ribs. I just kept working on the ribs, And so it became a very viable storyline.
Peter Maivia.
Peter Maivia, I never, other than having met him a time or two, never worked with him. And was strange because I remember I was up in Oregon when I went back up there, and I would have been, 64. And I went to the movies, and I saw this James Bond movie where Sean Connery's fighting this guy, and this guy is about this wide and so thick, and he's flying around. I'm going, I don't know who this guy is, but if he's not a wrestler, he should be. Well, it was Peter Maivia. But he had wrestled in Europe for like 15 years before he came over here. So he was an experienced hand. And so that's who that was, fighting Sean Connery. So my call was right, But I never had a chance to work with him.
Joe LeDuc.
Joe was good. He was not a flyer because, you get to be 300 pounds. You're not. You're a strongman type thing, And with the Frenchman gimmick, it was a good, cute thing. Yeah, I liked it. And he was good people. He was good people.
You went many times with Billy Robinson. Memories of those matches?
Probably the most memorable matches I had. I'd have to pay this compliment to Billy. Billy did as much, in a sense, for me becoming the AWA champion as anybody did, only because the matches we had were so good and just clicked so well that I'm sure that, the people who were watching and everything were saying, man, these two guys. And I mean, he knew so many moves, so many holes. I can't pay enough compliments to the man. He was that good. And needless to say, whatever my style was as a heel clicked with him. And so that's why, people will say some of the greatest matches they ever saw was Robinson and Bockwinkle, And so it was always enjoyable to work with Billy. It really was.
During that time period, you also got to go against Stevens one-on-one.
Yeah, and I did. And that was kind of, Ray was, I think, slowing down, or he had a lot of other issues going on in his life. And it was not the Ray Stevens who was able to deliver the max quality product. He had a lot of things happening in his life, and he was kind of upside down, and he had been drinking a little, and so we didn't have a very long program of any kind. Just a few times we worked with each other.
Around that time, like 77, 78.
Because let me just go back and just say, because Stevens at his best, it would have been phenomenal. I think. I mean, we would have really been able to tear the house down. I mean, he was so good. It didn't make any difference whether he was a heel, babyface. Didn't matter.
Around that time, like 77, I guess Frank Tunney and also Paul Boesch were doing like the super shows, like the interpromotional shows.
You got it.
What memories do you have of like the Frank Tunney ones? Because I think most of those were in Canada.
Yes, in Toronto. I'm probably one of the only people who worked with an NWA champion, which was Ric Flair in Winnipeg, and a WWF champion, which was Bob Backlund in Toronto, and which both matches wound up being a draw, but to have done that, it's a nice little feather. I like to say that I think I have in my cap, and it worked out really well.
You really took the AWA title from being
upper Midwest regional,
to a world title. Defending in Canada, different U.S. territories,
yes.
Japan.
Yeah.
What was that Vern's goal, or that something?
No, I think what it was, and as people tell me, my work earned that, because I used to go down to Tennessee, twice a month. I used to go down to Texas. I went to the Carolinas, which was, that was the heart of the NWA country. Needless to say, went back to Georgia as the AWA champion because I'd been there before. And for them to bring in another champion and that can be very distractive to your own NWA champion. So looking back upon it now, big time compliment. And I'm going to say big time compliment to me because of what I was doing. And Tennessee was kind of one of those that they want to draw money. They were in on a weekly basis, and consequently, it was good for me. I enjoyed it no matter where I went and what I did, So
going back to the supercards, doing some of my research, I found a funny story. I guess one time you were working for Paul Boesch down in Houston, and Harley was supposed to be on the card also.
Oh yeah, probably the biggest complimentary day to myself in a sense. What happened was Paul Boesch had got it passed finally in the legislature that wrestling and boxing could take place on a Sunday, which had never been able to be done before. So we've got a Sunday card at a bigger building. It's about 17,000, 18,000, wherever the Houston basketball team plays. And so he did something nobody else has ever done. He had Bruno Sammartino on the card, Nick Bockwinkel on the card, AWA, NWA, WWF, all three on the same card. So I'm working with Jose Lothario, 20 minutes, goes Broadway, and we have a hell of a nice affair. And I come out of the ring, and Paul says to me, he says, Nick, he says, Harley's not here. He says, you think you can go twice? I says, we got to do it, Popsy, we'll do it. I mean, I'm not sure. I think maybe at that time I was part of the business, so I mean, you just dig down, and this is one of those times you got to do it. Well, the sad thing was, no one informed Harley or the St. Louis office it was an afternoon show. Harley thinks it's an evening show. So I go in the ring and I wrestle for 1 hour with Terry. And I mean to tell you, Sylvester Stallone sat at ringside with Paul Boesch. This is before they did Paradise Alley. And did co-commentary. And Terry had just come back from having been injured, or I don't know if that was a work or not. And so he was full of it and ready to go. And I Jose and I set ours for 20 minutes to give it our all, because all three champions are going to show their wares. So everybody wants to, and as far as that goes, Jose wants to, hey, let's do it, baby. So it was fine with me, And so, set the gas tank for 20 minutes, and zoom. Now all of a sudden, I'm being asked, anything in the gas tank? And Terry and I went an hour. When I got to the hotel that night, I sat down. I had a suit on. Sat down in a chair, called my wife, and woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning sitting in the chair. Crashed, baby, crashed. And Harley, God bless him, he walks in about 7 o'clock in the evening, thinking it's a 8:30 show. And I looked at Harley and I said, Harley, thanks for the payday, honey. So I made out really good that day. Made out really good.